The good news is that it stays pretty, it goes fairly easily and smoothly unless I pull too tight or I get a snag, or coming off the spool I do something silly and the wire does break. That's certainly not fun, but it's certainly repairable. So you could, wherever the wire is broken, you can actually tie some knots, if you will, or twist it together and resolder it. It solders together very easily, very nicely, and now it's slowing down on its own. So again, the AC current, I'm over 4,000. I'll take another look just to see how I'm doing. Looks very nice. Pretty happy with that. Oops, really fast, really fast. That's 43. Probably 10 turns per second, I would say, if I were guessing the count. 44. 5. 6. 7. 8. 49. And there we go, 5,000. Actually, it's 5,015, but I'm okay with that at the moment. Hang it up because I do have to do another bobbin. Well, double-sided tape. Looks very nice, nice and even. No problems with it. We're going to put it right here because I forgot to bring a couple things over. But I'll solder the wire on first. For some reason I always like the Duncan color code, so I'm going green, red, black, white. And strip a little end off of this. Just wind it around the wire once again. Quick solder with the giant soldering gun. I may pick up a battery powered one just to do this job. Yeah, one of these days. Quick 10. And I'm happy. Got a little too much there. Let's get that off of it. Okay. Now I'll step over and pick up my tape. This was always the craziest part of making pickups. One would think that pickups having been made for at least from the 40s, that there would be a much cooler way to do this, because, or making the bobbins so that there's some way to have an eye hole, you know, hole in there or something. But on humbuckers, this is really still how it's done. And I'm just holding a wire on there. I'm going to wrap it around, and I'm going to come off at the bottom side. It's going to come out of the bottom at the same part that the green wire is coming out. So they both come out the same side. I think maybe the reason they had the ladies doing this at Fender was their hands are smaller. And if you do this every day, it probably gets a little easier to wrap it down. But again, not too big of a problem. I'm using standard pickup paper tape. And I only put on as many wraps as makes me feel comfortable that I've got it. And at the end of the day, what I really have here now is this one's coming out of the end loosely. This one's coming out of the hole that I set. And typically they would just both drop off the end if I didn't have that hole in there, but I never liked that. So I just added a little hole in the bobbin myself. And that's what I can say about making the humbucker bobbin, and as the title of this little video, it works for me. Once I get the other bobbin together, I will continue this video of putting it together with a 2-wire output as opposed to a 4-wire output, which 4-wire output is a pain in the butt, but the 2-wire works a little bit easier. And see you in a little bit.